Dr. Martinsson has a degree from the Luleå University of Technology and has an impressive EU merits, I must say.
Thank you.
As project manager at the R&D Center Process IT Innovation. He has taken part in many European collaboration and also taken part in shaping the European policy in several platforms as well. Now he's coordinating a Horizon 2020 project, so you're a coordinator, and I'm very glad to hear your story about that.
Thank you. I would like to start with making a few comments that was made by the previous speakers, speaking about these 70 pages. I'm going to tell you a story about this, actually this project Desire. We wrote the proposal and it was of course exactly 70 pages in Word. And then we compiled it into a PDF document, which turned out to be 71 pages, which we actually submitted in the portal. But we got approved anyway. It was one table missing. So that can happen. And I agree about the discussion from Alfa Laval about the consortia agreement. That is very important. And it's usually IPR question that companies like to discuss, ownership of results. And universities, of course, they want to publish everything as soon as possible. And in my experience, the larger the company, the longer it takes. The more lawyers you have, the more internal checkpoints you sort of have. And when we wrote the consortia agreement for the Desire project, the partner that took longest was ABB, which was also one of the largest companies and had the most lawyers, of course. And they have had a number of good suggestions, actually. And the last thing we had to include was actually code of conduct clause, because that was required from ABB. So being a researcher, you don't think about this code of conduct and so on every day, but you have to think about a lot of things writing these kind of agreements. Okay, Katrin provided me with a template. I've tried to follow it. So now I'm going to start the actual presentation. Okay, the title of the presentation is Success Factors of Horizon 2020 Proposals and Recommendations. So I'm going to try to give you my point of view, how to write a successful proposal. So this was prepared by myself and my colleague, George Nikolopoulos. It's a very hard name to pronounce. George, anyway. But he couldn't be here today because he's participating in a consortia meeting, actually, for a FET project. So I think he's in Greece, actually. I'm going to start giving you a few slides about the project, and then I'm going to go into the tips and tricks. Spire started 1st of January this year. It's a Spire 1 from 2014, and that call was called Integrated Process Control. We are 15 partners, and you know, you have to be at least 3 partners from 3 different countries for applying for a European proposal. And in Sweden we have LKAB, ABB, LTU, Mefos, and a small company in Kalix called Elektrotech. And the Polish partner of KGHM, which is quite a large Polish copper producer, the largest in Europe, number 4, I think, in the world. Dow Chemicals in Tarragona, Spain, and CIRSE, which is a research institute. GSTAT, and a partner from Israel, actually specializing in data mining, and Fraunhofer in Germany. And we have 5 of the beneficiaries are also members of Spire, which Gustav mentioned, the Spire PPP. There is a private organization called Spire as well. We are members as well, and we are the coordinator, and the budget is 6 million euros. So it's not as big as your project, but it's fairly big in my mind anyway. And up to the right, you see a picture from a couple of weeks ago. We had a tech meeting in Poland at one of the mines that KGHM is operating there. I am there somewhere. It's a small picture, so it's a bit hard to see. But we had a number of people that got an opportunity to visit the mine, and many of the researchers and so on participating here had never been to a mine, so that was surely an experience for them. And the KGHM mines are a bit special because they are hot mines, so the walls is about 30 degrees, so it's like after a while you feel like you're in a sauna, literally in a sauna. I had a management meeting during the mine visit. I've been there before, so. Okay, so what do we do in Desire? Of course, the call was called Integrated Process Control, and that's exactly what we are doing. And the basis for Desire, it comes from mining and mineral processing. But we are also looking into industrial combustion, because some of these processes are hot processes. Just quickly, we try to develop new control strategies for our industrial partners. We do a lot of process simulations here. We work with in situ measurements. We work with primarily traceability of granular materials and mixing of solids. And the goal, one can say, is to be able to measure any parameter of interest anywhere in an operating industrial process. So what we are doing is we are introducing sensors into the streams of material so we can follow the process and communicate with them. And one result that we achieved just a few weeks ago was that we were able to measure temperature in a lab oven. It was 1200 degrees, and we were able to keep it running for 25 minutes. That's a concrete example of what we are doing in Luleå anyway. Oops. This is another way of looking at the value chain we are working along. I think it's quite important to describe the value chain if you're writing a European proposal or the ecosystem you are operating in. It makes it so much easier for the evaluators and the consortia to understand the real targets and goals you want to achieve. So in Poland with KGHM, we're working with the mining process and mineral processing. And the value chain we're trying to integrate is the mine with the refinery plants, or the concentration plants. At LKAB, we are working with what I call here secondary mineral processing. It's sintering in principle. It's a hot process, and then we try to trace the product flow from LKAB to their customers. And they are an iron ore producer, so their customers are steel mills, which have a steel manufacturing process, a blast furnace, basically. We do that at Sverige Mefos. The plan was to have Tata Steel in Holland as a partner, but they did not manage to get approval from their top-level management. So we had to exclude them from the proposal, but they are actually knocking on our door now and want to join the project somehow, but without funding. That is. Okay, sorry, I missed Dow Chemicals. Together with Dow, we are looking into a cracking furnace, optimizing the combustion process. Okay, you had one slide with success factors. And of course, when we listen to the previous speakers, you need to think about a lot. But I'm going to give you at least one advice that I think is important. Read the call. Sounds very simple when I'm saying it, but read the call and read it thoroughly. And not just read it, you must understand it. And I've seen highly educated people, very smart people, reading a call, a text, and interpret it completely different, depending on what you have depending on your background. And that's very human. We all do that. So I recommend, my main recommendation here is do an analysis. That sounds a bit pretentious, but try to analyze what does the call really say. And you mentioned keywords. What I usually do when I read a call, I break it down, usually sentence by sentence, but sometimes you need an even finer grain to understand this. And then I try to identify a few keywords that the writers of the call have used. And then I try to use them in the text, of course, when I write. And very importantly, try to score yourself. That's the only way you can be objective, because everything is a subjective analysis here. And this is from Spire 1, how we did it. We can, oh, this is a bit hard to see, but this is the impacts that were listed in Spire 1. So I broke it down to a number of sentences here. Significant decrease in greenhouse gas emissions was one sentence here. So what is the keyword here? Of course, it's greenhouse gas. And then we try to score ourselves, and actually we scored a 4 out of 5. So we're not really addressing this, but we're aware we're not addressing this fully. And then in which work package are we addressing greenhouse gas emissions? So you know that you actually have a coherent plan for it, so you not just write it in the introduction. We're going to reduce greenhouse gas with X%, and then it's not mentioned anywhere else. And for me, this has been quite successful. And as you heard earlier as well, why do we do this so thoroughly? Because the project will be evaluated. And you have two stages of evaluation. First, of course, and the most important one, is you have an expert evaluation, where you get the scoring, and Gustav explained that in more detail than I will do, how that is carried out. But what are the experts looking at? Well, they are looking at the conformity of the proposal with the call outline. Am I right? Yes, he's nodding his head, so I think I'm right. And if you look at what does the word conformity means, doing and thinking as others. So you have to write the proposal and think like the one who proposed it. That's a success factor. Don't just, if I read Spire 2 the other day, and model predictive control was mentioned. And of course, a number of my colleagues said, yes, model predictive control, we work with that. But after a while, when I explained to them, you have to do this, you have to do that, and done, they have forgotten 9 out of 10 important things, actually. So it's very important to read it thoroughly. And I found a very interesting quote from Bertrand Russell, who's a British philosopher. I was actually looking for something else from him when I found this, but I thought it described it very well. A stupid man's report of what a clever man says can never be accurate, because he unconsciously translates what he hears into something he can understand. And that is exactly what I'm talking about here. And I've been the stupid man, actually, many times. But I've learned over the years how to do it. And then you have so the first step in the evaluation is the expert evaluation. The second step is what I call a more political evaluation. But I've learned that this works quite differently in the different departments. So I will not say that much about this, but it's the conformity of the proposal with the European Union's strategies, the PPPs, the roadmaps and so on, or the GTIs like Excel. But I think I'll leave it at there. Okay, this is our quotes from our evaluation summary report. And hopefully this brings things together. So when it came to excellence, they said that the objectives are well described with relevant case studies, fully aligned with the Spire 1 scope. That's important. You have a scope section in the call, and we were aligned with the scope, apparently. When it came to the impact, all of the impacts listed in the work program are supported. So again, we have tried to address everything that they asked for, more or less, but we have addressed everything. And implementation, the overall work plan, and then there was something more, has a coherent structure. Again, it's very important that you have a coherent structure, things are linked in a logical way, and so on. Okay, what are the challenges? How am I on time? I'm on time. Good. I thought, oh yeah, there are challenges. There are a lot of them. First of all, if you have a large network, that really saves time. If you know a lot of people in Europe, in your field, and a lot of interest. And one way of achieving a large network is achieving these brokerage events. And these kind of events as well in Sweden, but primarily brokerage event in Europe. And this takes time, actually, if you start from scratch. Understand the call, like I said, do the analysis, and you really need a killer ID. And it has to be aligned with what they specify in the call. And I think this is a lot of consortium, a lot of proposal actually fails here. They have an idea, it's not quite aligned with the call, but they do it anyway and try to squeeze it in somehow, and they miss their point. And this is how I've been usually works when we're writing proposal. You need to have a business case described on a quite high level, because there will be high-level management that has to make a decision if, for example, Alfa Laval is going to join a project like this. You might be the high-level management in this case. Research manager was your title, right? No, but okay. So this is important to think about, not just the technical details, because the technical details you can figure out. That's not the problem. Have a good PowerPoint presentation or a keynote presentation if you are a Mac user, and start drafting the proposal early. 70 pages is not that much, but there are a lot of things you have to think about, and it's good to draft this quite early, and then be prepared to travel and visit a number of partners in Europe, and iterate this, update it as you go along. And update it according to partners, specification needs, but also according to fulfilling what is said in the call. Another important thing is here that Gustav also addressed a little bit is understand the call background. I mean, they don't just put them up there on the web page for a reason. There is a background why the Commission wants this project. And very simple here. Spire calls are based on the Spire roadmap. FOF calls are based on the FOF roadmap, or the EFRA, what do they call it, MAS-RIA or whatever. Excel calls are based on Excel MAS-RIA. So there is a background why the Commission are publishing these calls. And now I'm mostly talking about the PPPs because that's what I know best. And writing a proposal, that is also something you should remember. It costs some money, actually. And in my estimations, it's usually around 200,000 to 300,000 Swedish crowns for travel, for salaries, and so on, or somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 4 person month, if you're coordinating it. Of course, then there are a lot of other people working at the partners. Okay, so there are a number of challenges here. But of course, the payback can be quite large, especially, I would say, for academic partners. But a few more word of advice here. you must remember that Horizon 2020 is a top-down program. So it's the Commission who decides about the calls. But the good thing is that they don't sit in a closed office and just imagining, okay, what should we fund now? No, they actually talk to a number of organizations and a number of people. So in Europe, we say that the European Commission consult external sources. In US, they call it lobbying. But here we call it consultation in Europe, which I guess is a better name for it anyway. And you have the ETPs, European Technology Platforms, that they are talking to. You have the joint undertakings and the PPPs. And these are fully transparent organizations, not 100%, but more or less. You can find the roadmaps online. What do they want to do? How have they described it? And what do we see in the call? Have they added something? And also, yeah, of course, the Commission procure projects for a reason, so I understand why. And I think a number of the previous speakers have addressed the same issue. And I attended, I think it was a Spire meeting this summer, where Clara de la Torre, was participating, and she had one slide, and it said impact. So impact is the name of the game, actually. Think about the impacts. Very, very important, which you also heard before. And yeah, this is the budget for Horizon 2020. It's 17 billions. And it's highly competitive market. You have to think about it like that. It's highly competitive, so you need to be best of the best to succeed. But if you do, payback can be large. Okay, so I skip that one and come to the recommendations. Understand the call, and understand the call background, understand the context. That helps you a lot. So to understand it, perform an analysis, use keywords from the call. And in this case, actually, the Commission gave us the keywords, so that was very good. And remember that the European Commission procure projects. They are not a research funding organization per se. And this I couldn't fit in any of the previous slides. But a good way to bring SMEs into a project is if you have a large company, say, yeah, we work a lot with LKAB. Ask them, which SME would you like to bring into the project to do this? Because if you work with a trusted SME and a trusted OEM, that's much faster than if you have an unknown SME that is going into a big organization. And of course, try to create a coherent proposal and iterate a lot. Thank you. And my disclaimer. I might be wrong, you know. So these are my opinions. That's what I try to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. They're great opinions, I would say. I think it's very, very helpful for us that you're sharing them with us. You had participated in quite a few EU projects before this one, and I guess you're also part of the Spire preparation and planning, etc.
I'm part of the one working group in Spire called Process. So yes.
So, but were your expectations met when you actually got to work in the project that you have been planning for quite some time?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We have been pushing process control or automation quite a lot, actually. And Spire 1 was called Integrated Process Control. We were quite happy when we got that. So yes, that's good. Same in Artemis. We have also been pushing automation as part of ICT and embedded systems. And now we actually have what Artemis, or what Excel is calling smart production, as one of the pillars of Excel, which is very good. And of course, we're not alone. I can't take credit alone for this. It's a number of people working together. This is teamwork, and it takes time. as well.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have a question from the audience to Erik? No, then I have another question. You're taking part as an academic partner in what we've heard are quite applied research and innovation projects. How is that for you? Do you experience? Are you those that are battling with Connie with your PhD students, or?
Well, yes, we have actually 3 PhD students working in this project at the Luleå University of Technology in different fields as well. One is in electronics, one is in automatic control, and one is in quality control, I think, or something like that. But they are working as a team, so for them it's quite good to be part of something bigger, actually, even though they are in different fields. But of course, it can be a little bit of a struggle to both doing quite applied developments, but also doing applied research. Yes. But you can find a balance there, absolutely. And there are research questions.
Yeah, and probably a great experience as well. Yes. So I will try to get the bags out of here. Thank you very much. It was very useful for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And